how do we overcome self-doubt from holding us back and believe in ourselves more?
Let's talk about social media for a second. If you're not paying, then you're not the customer, you're the product. And because you're the product, they are working overtime to make you feel bad. They are basically saying you should feel bad about yourself until you click this button to see what people are saying about you behind your back. And then about 2 minutes later, they'll say, oh, now you should feel bad until you press this button. And so it's this endless cycle. At the same time, all you're seeing on certain platforms are greatest hits albums. It's like being a rock group and all you're surrounded by is Billy Joel's greatest hits, Elton John's greatest hits, the Doobie Brothers. Well, of course you're stuck because that's their life's work on one album, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing I'm proposing is that you turn it off, and you turn it off for long periods of time, that you can be an informed citizen and you can be connected to your friends in less than 20 minutes a day. And anything you're doing beyond that, you're not doing it because it's additive. You're doing it because you're hooked.
You're addicted. You're not additive, it's addictive.
Right, exactly. And the addiction is, it keeps you from the noise in your head. It keeps you from yourself. And so the reason the book was called Trust Yourself is when you're talking to yourself, who is talking and who is listening?
Just you.
It's only one of you, but we act like there's two. And so the one who's talking is the Twitter, Facebook one that's saying you're inadequate, you're never going to amount to anything, you're not perfect, you need to wait, it's not the right time. My friend Steve Pressfield calls this resistance. It's profound, it's deep. It gets you to change your clothes 20 times before you go on a blind date. All the problems come from resistance. But who is that voice talking to? It's talking to a voice that wants to be trusted. It's talking to a voice that once said something creative, once did something that was funny, once made something better. All of us have done it at least once. And then along the way, resistance and that voice persuaded us not to trust that self. And if we turn off social media and stop checking our email for an hour, 2 hours a day, the only person left to talk to is the self. And if we can adopt a practice and give the self room, it will surprise us. It won't always be right. It won't always be successful, but it will always be better than your hustling, hacking way of just playing with the system.
Mm-hmm. This is something I respect about you. I don't think you've ever been on social media yourself, really. I mean, a lot of your pages are managed by your team, at least for as long as I can remember. It's probably been years. Maybe you dabble every now and then, you do a couple tweets. I'm not sure if you still do that, and I think it allows you to write 20 books and launch businesses and be there for your team and be there for your family and continue to show up for yourself without being insecure. Oh, am I going to compare myself to whoever else is putting out a book this year? It allows you to focus. And I remember I did a couple of years ago, I went to Hawaii for 5 days and I left my phone and computer in LA. And I got on a plane with no phone, no computer. And it was terrifying because I had to go old school 1997 and ask for directions at a gas station to figure out where my hotel was. But I tell you what, after 2 days, I was laying in the ocean looking up and I wasn't thinking about going to check my phone on the beach or getting back into the room to check something. It was the most freeing, liberating thing that I've ever done. And I highly recommend people figure out a system that works for them. Maybe you're not able to do that for days or years like Seth has done, but something where you can time block periods of the time during the day where you don't check social media. I think that's a huge
thing we should do. No, I have as much insecurity as the next person. It's just different kind of insecurity.
What type of insecurity do you have right now?
I spend most of my time wrestling with the sin of omission. What didn't I do? Who didn't I respect? Who didn't I give a chance to? What didn't I publish that would have made things better? Where did I hold back because it was a little bit more comfortable? Because those errors have compounded and built and built and built. They're so much bigger than the error of naming a book All Marketers Are Liars, which is a really bad name for a book, right? But, I didn't write The Long Tail. Well, it would have been better to write The Long Tail than to give that book a better title. You know what I mean? And so, when Twitter came along, I was there really early. I saw what was possible and I said, what will I have to give up to be good at Twitter? Because whatever I give up, I'll be less good at that. And the same thing's true with Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I don't use any of them. And it's not necessary to use them to be a well-functioning adult. Now, maybe if I had a dating life, I'd feel differently about it. But it's hard for me to see who has actually built a legitimate practice of doing creative work who can point to social media as the primary reason they're able to do it. Yeah, it's possible to be a Kardashian and it's possible to be a YouTube star, but then you're looking in the rearview mirror all day, right? You're not spending time saying, how do I become a better version of me? You're spending time saying, what's the trend? I got to get in front of it.
So what do you do to help overcome self-doubt or insecurity for yourself?
So I have a blog. I've written 7,500 posts in a row. And tomorrow morning, which will be a Friday, there will be another post. But it won't be there because it's the best post ever, nor will it be there because I decided to post it tomorrow. It will be there because it's Friday. And I haven't reconsidered that decision in 20 years. So I don't have to have a meeting with myself about whether or not it's time to write a blog post. There will be a blog post. You chop the wood, you carry the water. By getting rid of the debate, then think about how many things you do that were impossible 100 years ago. That when movies first opened, they had I don't know if you know this, they had special attendants at the movies because they were afraid people would have a heart attack or faint. Because seeing a train coming on the movie screen was so traumatic. And the first few years the cars were available, people broke their arms on a regular basis, turning the starter of the car. And early in the days of washing machines and dishwashers, washing machines, they only had one plug in people's houses. And so you had to unplug the light and plug in the washing machine. And the washing machine wasn't balanced, so it would move. Dozens of people died every year because the cord would wrap around their neck and kill them. So there's all this stuff we just do as a matter of course, right? Driving across town used to be death-defying, but we get used to it. We build a pattern into it. And so what I've tried to do is make it so that writing a blog post for 1 million people doesn't make me nervous because I do it every day. And so therefore, I can then focus on, but I have this chance tomorrow to say something that might help someone. Let me just focus on that because I've trained myself that it's not that risky.
When do you feel the biggest or the most amount of fear then?
I would say if I've committed to a significant project that's bigger than a blog post, and I am going to pitch it to people who I trust, I'm worried about one or two things. Either they'll all like it right away, in which case I did something sort of trivial, and then I have to start over. Or
and you have to launch that thing and put all this energy and time into it.
Yeah. Or they say I've completely missed it. And now I've got a real problem because I have trained myself to fall in love with whatever I'm committing to, like we started with, be passionate about what you do. And so now I got to decide, am I willing to be passionate about what I do in the face of all the skepticism? So if you think back to 1989, 1990, I was living here in New York and I started one of the first internet companies. And every single person I know, all of my relatives, said that I was completely delusional. For years, this went on. And it was a hard slog because it's not like you started something in 1991 before the World Wide Web and the next thing you know, you won. It took 7.5 years for it to work. And I was surrounded by people who didn't get the joke. And that's a scary feeling because you've made a promise to people about their livelihood. You've made a promise to your future self about this work you're doing. And sometimes you have to persist. And other times you have to say, I was wrong. And either one of them is really challenging.
Yeah, I have this theory that we're afraid of three main things. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of success, which is what you just shared, both of those. And kind of the third one is just the fear of judgment, people judging you that know you or that don't know you, just the constant judgment that people have, close or
Correct.
not close to you. And those three fears kind of cripple us. And some of us lean more into one of them than others, or all of them. For me, it was never fear of failure, because as an athlete, I learned early on, you got to make mistakes to learn, to, improve the shot or to catch the football or whatever it is. You got to fail to learn and grow. So I welcomed the mistakes. I wasn't afraid of success because I wanted to succeed. I had these goals, we would have team goals. I was like, let's win. But I was deathly afraid of people's opinions and the judgment of people that knew me or didn't know me. And
Yeah.
that's what made me feel insecure, was caring so much about everyone's opinion. And it made me very unhappy for so long. But would you say that you care about people's opinion, or that are close to you, or more people's opinion that are not close to you?
I love the name of the show, School of Greatness. And I think that greatness is a really cool idea, because we can't have such a scarcity mindset that we think that only one person is great. Greatness does not mean you beat everybody else, right? Greatness to me means that you went right to the edge of what you were capable of doing in this moment. And so I think it is possible to be great and come in 400th at the New York Marathon, because compared to what you would have done if you hadn't shown up the way you showed up, never would have happened. And so for me, a version of greatness for me is reading something a year later and not remembering how I possibly wrote it. That listening to an audiobook I recorded 10 years ago because I need to hear it. Hearing from a past version of me about what might be possible.
Mm.
And one of the things that is a problem for me in social media is I just don't deal well with anonymous criticism.
You don't like it at
No,
all.
it completely undermines me, because I want to make things right and I can't, because that person's already gone, right? And Zig Ziglar used to talk about that person who cuts you off in traffic and you're honking and angry at them. They don't even know you exist.
They're gone. They got loud music on. They're gone.
It's gone. But you're sitting there living with the toxicity of that, right? But then the other thing that I love about the name is the word school, because you don't mean school in the education sense of, and then I'll give you an A. Mm-hmm. You mean school in the learning sense of, if you are enrolled in this journey and you're doing it for the right reason, here you might learn something, but you don't have to be poked and prodded. You will self-enroll. You will go forward. Mm-hmm. And so the online workshops that I've been building for the last 5 years, the altMBA, that's all about that. The reason it works so well is because the only people who take it really want to. Mm-hmm. And that's why books are so cool, because the only person who buys it is, no one accidentally buys a book, right? And so you get to start by saying, this is where I'm going. Do you want to come? And it feels to me like that's one of the critical elements of greatness, is being open to only going there with people who want to go with you.
Yeah. I love the word enrollment that you use. I use that word a lot because I'm such a big believer that life is a game of enrollment. We're enrolling people in our vision, or we're unenrolling them with every moment. And it doesn't matter if you've been enrolling for 30 years, you could unenroll someone in a moment, or lose trust in a moment with your relationship or whatever it may be, and then need to re-enroll for a long time to get that back. Are you a believer that creative people are born with a creative gift or talent more than, let's say, less creative people? Or can any type of creativity be learned over the years?
Yeah. So thank you so much for setting me up for this. Okay. Number one, almost nobody is talented. Talent is completely overrated. I would argue that you were born with certain physical talents that enabled you to excel in sports that I could never have acquired, no matter how hard I tried. Even that said, though, Larry Bird was not born with the kind of talent that Michael Jordan was. Mm-hmm. Larry Bird just grounded out and shot more practice shots than anybody else. That's a skill.
And hustled. Yeah.
Yeah. But the good kind of hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it feels to me like talent is a betrayal. It is undermining all of the people who put all that work into skill. Don't call someone skillful talented, because they're not. They're skillful. So we can agree that playing the piano is a skill, in the sense that if you work at it, you get better at it. But I would like to believe that being enthusiastic is a skill. And then so is being creative. It's a skill. You can get better at it. You can choose to put in the work in whatever form it takes. We're not talking about graphic art here, unless you want it to be graphic art, to gain the skill. And if that's true, that's really good news, because it means you're not stuck where you are. It means you can go to where you want to go. And it's really good news because skills can be acquired. Mm-hmm. And that fills me with optimism about so many things in our world. You know, we can point to the human condition and say people are just doomed to hate each other and to undercut each other. But I can point to a culture where that's not happening. So how did that happen? Well, it's because it's a skill.
If you want more greatness in your life, then you got to check out this video right here.
Mental resolve. I think that everybody needs that, because when you have goals and dreams, there will be resistance. An airplane cannot fly without the resistance of air. Walt Disney filed bankruptcy 7 times and had 2 nervous breakdowns.